Hello everyone, it's Michael from Chess Lifestyle, and yeah, I'm at a friend's house today, so thankfully I have stable internet. And actually, the main reason why I needed stable internet was actually to teach my chess lessons today, and I actually have a chess lesson in around 20 minutes. So this is going to be a very short stream, but I thought, I'm quite busy today as well, so I don't think I'm going to get much more time than this. But I actually wanted to take a look at Tingjie Lei's first round loss in the candidates. And I'm particularly invested in this game because she played a minority attack, which is like a plan in a certain pawn structure that I also happen to play right now, and I've dedicated many hours to. So I'm kind of curious to see what went wrong for her. And also, I have some money on Tingjie Lei to score higher than Gorakshina, which of course still can happen, and I completely back her. She's half a point behind Gorakshina, so it's anyone's game still. But yeah, I don't really know what were the kind of psychological reasons that went into some of the blunders she made. But I at least want to take a look at the chess side of things and see if we can learn anything from it. Let me just make sure that everything is working. Should be working fine. Okay, so Tingjie Lei, I actually should find out what's the correct pronunciation of her name, played d4, and we get an exchange Queen's Gambit declined. Now, I actually reached this move order, or this position, through a different move order, which if any of you get my chessable course, which will come out in around a month's time, I'm advocating for this 1c3, and it looks super goofy, even more goofy than Tingjie. But yeah, the idea of it is we can actually get some really interesting transpositions where we're playing this reverse Caro-Kann, and if you see that this position, this is actually a direct transposition to this, very famous main line of the Queen's Gambit declined exchanged. So yeah, from this point onwards, Tingjie plays the main move, which is bishop g5, and I've actually advocated for this bishop f4 move, which has a slightly different game plan. In general, I'm more interested in trading my bishop for their bishop, and I don't want to allow them any kind of attacking potential on this diagonal. But I think Tingjie manages to trade off this bishop anyway, eventually. And I really like the setup that Tingjie has gone for so far, because the queen is covering the f5 square, the pawn is covering the g4 square, and that means this bishop is a little bit passive on e6, and probably I would play knight f3, bishop d3 and castle, and probably drop the bishop back to g3 as well, and then look to be playing on the queen side with a minority attack. So this is kind of what happened, and then this was some preparation from Zhongyi Tan, and I wonder what I would do in this position. And this is I don't really have to deal with this kind of stuff, because normally my bishop's on f4, right? So I'm not having to deal with these sneaky discovered attacks on h4. But yeah, knight e4 seems a reasonable move to me, and bishop takes h4 was the point. And to be honest, for me, my first instinct would just be to take this bishop with the hope that after queen takes, then I can just reroute the knight. But I realized that probably after taking here, the point might be that they want to take... No, they don't want to take like this, because then I can take with the queen, I protect the knight. So actually, what's wrong with this plan? Or maybe there's nothing wrong with this plan. So bishop takes h4. Okay, knight c5 is just an even stronger move. So yeah, my instinct to do this... oh wow, Yeah, exactly. So they can do this, and I would have played knight d2 to knight f3, and just felt quite comfortable with my position here. Knight g3 looks a bit confusing to me, because I don't necessarily understand why the knight is so good on g3. And knight c5 also makes a lot of sense, right? Because when you're doing this minority attack, often the knight on c5 can be a very powerful piece, and if it ever gets attacked, it can drop back to d3, which is a really, really strong square. So maybe this is actually a much better maneuver than knight d2, knight f3. So I guess this is what Tingjie was thinking with this knight c5 move. And you can see already she's got an objectively decent position. So the opening hasn't gone wrong at all. And she manages to trade off this dark squared bishop, which could potentially be deployed to have some attacking chances. So I think this was all good. And yeah, the general rule is, with this minority attack, you want to be playing for b4. And if you can get b4 in, which Tingjie can, then this is absolutely the move to be played. So to be honest, this is like an absolute dream minority attack. We've traded off this dangerous dark squared bishop. We've traded off a pair of knights. We have already gotten b4. We've already got a knight c5. Like, I would suspect this position is at least plus 0.5, if not more. Yeah. So, okay. This is, I guess, plus 0.5. So, fair enough. King h1, yeah. So this is always, whenever your king is on the line of the queen, you always want to step off it. Yeah, and here, without looking at the engine, I would probably be thinking of playing like maybe a rook to b1, a4, playing for b5 already. Wow, and Tingjie already plays b5 now. And this is actually, I mean, okay, I'm obviously in no position to be lecturing Tingjie on what she should do. I'm not going to, but the way that I learned this minority attack through studying a bunch of Karpov's games and like learning this minority attack from different resources. B4 is a move that you want to try and play if you can, if there's no like good way that black can exploit it. But for this b5 push, this is actually a move that you don't necessarily want to play immediately until you've secured your kingside, as well as prepared this minority attack. So maybe a move like a4 first in order to play for b5. Maybe we want to improve this rook. I'm not sure on which square exactly it belongs the most. But there's no real rush to play with b5. Now, normally the b5 move is going to come anyway. But I guess what Tingjie was arguing was that, I guess, like, you know, there's not really any play on the king side yet. So we may as well just see if we can get some advantage quickly. It's an interesting idea. And yeah, now black plays for their signature kind of kingside attack. But when there's only one bishop, like it's really shocking to me that there's actually any potential for something here. And I don't blame Tingjie for like creating this weakness on c6 already. Although, yeah, engine suggests this really interesting bishop d3 move just to make sure that this rook doesn't come to g6. And the point is that I don't think there's a way to unravel this queenside. I guess this engine idea is actually not so bad. Because then once the bishop is distracted, maybe now you can play rook g6, yeah. And maybe that's a little bit annoying. So maybe this is something what Tingjie was looking at. But still, I'm really, really surprised actually that white is not doing better here. Because generally, you know, white's got the statically better position. And if black can't get an attack going, then white is just going to be doing better. So at this moment here, this is surprising to me that a move like, let's say, rook c1 is actually already not so good. And wow, this queen h4 is so strong. So I guess the problem is that there's like a double attack here. And there's no real way to defend both. So if you play like rook c2 or something, I guess this sacrifice is working. Yeah, and this is just mate, right? So this bishop lined up on f3, this is really interesting. And this is why also, like, with my preparation, I'm never actually that I never really have an issue with my opponent, let's say something like this, with my opponent playing the bishop f5, because I play bishop d3 here, and although it's objectively equal, like, we do reduce one less attacker on the king side. But this is very interesting that there's such attacking potential even in this position with this configuration of pieces. So I wonder actually, firstly, if this position has been played before. Is this knight e4 like some kind of novelty? Because I heard in the commentary that this was like some novelty here. Oh, and apparently on Lichess this has been played multiple times, and black plays playing knight e8, right, which is the top move. So I guess it is some big theory that knight e4 is working as well. And still it baffles me that this isn't just stronger for white, like this position. So interestingly, I guess this king h2 might be an interesting resource to keep in mind because you then basically add a bit of extra protection on h3. So these sacrifices are less working. I mean, naturally it feels a bit dodgy to put the king on h2, but given that there's no dark squared bishop and the queen can't really reroute so easily, this is going to take a couple moves, put the queen on a worse square, and then the king can always drop back to h1. Hey, this game was so cool. Yes, Josh. Shame for Lei. I wanted her to win again, to be honest. I've played the white side of these positions a lot, and black always seems to get a big attack. Right, I mean, I remember, Shay, from your game in Liverpool, where you had some problems here. But it's weird because I've also played this structure, and I just never seem to have too many problems. Like, I don't know if I can... Okay, let me very quickly show this, if I have it. Do I have this? Yes, I might do. So these are some model games that I show in my course. And there's a really nice game, I think it's the Karpov-Belyavsky game, where if you see the way that white engineers this minority attack, you can see that here, white already has the chance to break b5, right? They have enough pieces on it. And what Karpov does splendidly is he just basically maneuvers all of his pieces into perfect defensive roles. So you see the bishop coming to f1, right? The rook coming to a2, and you see these tactics that we just spoke about, right? Where the queen was coming to h4, creating some pressure on h3, creating some pressure on f2. Suddenly, white is actually not allowing any of these tactics to work. So I wonder that, in the game with Tingjie, in this kind of position, right? Rather than play b5 right now, why don't we just prepare the defense a bit better? I don't know, why don't we put rook fb1 to help support b5, and maybe we can try and play with a4, so we can play with a rook on a2, maybe a bishop on f1 if needed. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this bishop on f1 is actually a really useful piece in stopping sacrifices. And actually, yeah, I recall, I recently spoke to Josh about a position where bishop f1... Oh, no, it wasn't Josh, sorry. It was another friend of mine where basically the knight was rerouting to f4, and bishop f1 was a very useful move to kind of, prevent these sacrifices. So I think, you can see the way, Karpov just engineered this attack. And I mean, in fairness, Belyavsky hasn't created any attacking potential on the king side compared to Zhongyi, right, with her queen on g5. But still, you can just see the patience in Karpov's maneuvering, just not, committing to b5 and only playing b5 when, 10 moves later, once they have set up this plan. So, yeah, I think maybe this b5 could be prepared a bit more. And generally, when I play for the minority attack, I definitely try and play b4 when I can, when it's good. Black can't quickly set up this kind of formation. If not for that, then yeah, I can push for b4. But I wait until playing for b5 until I'm fully secure on the king side. That would kind of be my inclination here. But it's very interesting to see that this is actually such a dangerous configuration, and clearly. This is some preparation from Zhongyi, and Tingjie was just not equipped for it. But it's interesting now how h5 is actually somewhat of a liability, because it actually blocks maybe some transfer of the pieces. Although in this position the pawn is already blocking the rook, so it feels like maybe there isn't as much possibility to create some kind of attack on this h file. So Zhongyi decides to bring in another piece. And this is a nice idea to try and bring the queen back on the defense using this diagonal, which is fair. But then came a super interesting decision. And I mean, lots of people will trash Tingjie for making this decision because, as soon as she makes this move, the engine evaluation drops for the first time in the game to black's advantage. And of course, it is a bad move, and we're going to get into why. But it's just very human as well that, she spent 10 minutes here, right? She spent 10 minutes and she was super afraid of all of these complications of taking on h3, and just decided she doesn't have the time to like come to some satisfactory conclusion, and she'd rather grovel a worse position with queen f4, allowing this trade just to get the attacking pressure off the king. And to me, it's understandable. Like sometimes, you know, you need to just take the L and just say like, okay, I don't want to lose, right? I'd rather defend a worse position. But interestingly here, there's actually a defensive resource, and this is something I haven't really looked into yet. But I was really surprised to see that rook ac1. I thought, rook f needs to say defending the pawn. So just creating some counterplay, right? Like attacking this weakness. And surprisingly, I'm sure bishop h2 was what she was afraid of. But incredibly, there's this resource of queen h2. And of course, I haven't seen any of these resources before in my study of the minority attack. But incredibly, black is just, gained a pawn. But now we've got this very annoying pin. And the problem is, it's not clear how to deal with this, right? Like, they can't move the bishop away without losing the queen. Can't move the queen without losing the bishop. So there's this only move of rook f6 in this position, where white is still pawn down, and now the point is that, you know, we can't just take back because basically we lose this bishop back. But interestingly enough, white is still better here. So even though black is up a pawn, I guess the point is that black can't unravel out of this. I thought maybe black can try g5 or something, protect the queen, and then try and retreat the bishop. So the point, I guess, is that the bishop is blocked. I mean, is stuck because we don't want to allow this black rook to take. But what about a move like rook c2, right? Adding some extra protection. You see how, like, you know, Karpov's game, right? The rook is already on the a2, defending laterally, while also being active, right? Whereas now, like, Tingjie's rook has to be very passive on f1. So the rook on c2, what happens if we just defend it? And I guess Tingjie must have been looking at some complicated lines. Maybe this rook e8 looks really interesting, right? Because I was hoping that I'd be able to move this bishop away in order to then create the threat of taking this bishop, but then there's rook takes e3, right? Like, black's got a serious initiative here, and I can imagine, like, trying to calculate some of these lines, just starting to panic about all of this. But still, this is the best case scenario to play for this. And I guess there's a way you can just slowly get out of trouble. Like, it's really not clear to me how exactly you do that. I guess maybe one way is, you know, if you can't move the bishop yet, then maybe we can try and put the rook like this way. Is that like a clever way? And then we can move the bishop away. Like rook b1 is the top move. And okay, black can continue trying to create some attack. Is this ever an idea, or are we weakening our back rank too much? Apparently we are. This is some move. Okay. And how is this working? Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy that this is actually super strong. But I guess it makes sense, like this bishop takes and then comes out to here. This is really deadly. So really interesting how this minority attack kind of failed, and I think it's in the preparation of the defense. Like there seems to be way too much attacking potential here, and I don't know how this could have been avoided. I mean, I guess in this position, right? Like when the bishop takes, we don't really have a choice but to help activate this queen. Unless we were to just simply drop back with the knight and say, you know what, our knight is doing a great job covering these weak squares. Sure, black gets to keep their bishop, but maybe then at least we're defending against these squares. So I think this line is definitely going to be an interesting test to see if the minority attack player can successfully defend against this. Luckily for me, I don't really have to deal with this because I'm playing systems where I really like this bishop f4 move, and it's super rare, and I've done a lot of analysis here to kind of make it work. But I don't think I'm going to have to deal with these problems of like some tactical blow of the bishop being loose on h4, and my knight will always be on f3 covering these two squares. So I think I'm going to be fine with my preparation of minority attack. But yeah, really interesting of this plan, and yeah, I haven't seen this configuration before, and I have a chess lesson starting in 2 minutes, so I'm just going to quickly speed speed forward just to show what went wrong here. So basically, I don't think Tingjie had. It's probably one of these moves where, like, you calculate this line of rook ac1 really, really deep. You panic. You realize that you don't think it's going to work, and then you just play a move that you haven't calculated deep enough or well enough. And I think like she just didn't realize that she was actually just like completely worse after this rook f6, because you can't play g3 because this pawn hangs. This pawn is hanging in a lot of lines, and basically she ended up getting this situation where she went down a pawn. But credit to Tingjie, because she didn't give up and she fought really hard. And the really interesting thing was that in chess, with the more serious games, you have like a time control at move 40. And what that means is that when you reach your time limit and you get to this move, you get added time. But the problem is you can get very, very short on time. And we actually reached a move 40 situation where Tingjie had an only move of bishop takes d5. And it's such a classic where players make blunders on move 40 because there's so much pressure that you need to make this critical decision. And it's very common practice that you try and just play a move that is kind of a bit more calm, not as dynamic, on move 40. And then on the next move, you calculate. But interestingly here, it was basically do or die. You go for this combination, even though you can't calculate it so well. You play this dynamic move and you just hope for the best. And I'm sure Tingjie wanted to play this move. And had it been move 41, or even maybe move 38 or something, she probably would have gone for it. But given it was move 40, you just have this psychological like pressure to just say like, don't play something committal when you can't calculate nice and long and cleanly. But I mean, ultimately credit to Zhongyi for, this preparation, getting Tingjie down on the clock. And this ultimately saved her, because I think after bishop takes d5, Tingjie would probably save this position for white. And the reason why this is so good is because even though material is equal, right, it's the same material situation. Here, white is an outside pass pawn, and black's actually got a really good pawn on g2 situated to try and stop this majority. And the king may be able to help with preventing these pawns, whereas this king is like nowhere near to stop this pawn from running. So it's a very interesting endgame, which definitely deserves more analysis. But guys, I've run out of time. That is all I'm going to have time for today as well. Hopefully we'll do a bit of a longer stream tomorrow. I realize we've had some short streams in recent times, but I hope you found that interesting, especially that analysis of the minority attack. And I guess, guys, see you tomorrow. Bye.